Let's make this! This is a code-generated conspiracy board with pixelated faces, documents, sticky notes, and strings. I created it using JavaScript in the p5.js library. Because it is made out of code, you can easily explore variations like changing the size of the documents and photos, more or less organized arrangements, and different scales. P5 normally uses anti-aliasing to draw lines and shapes, but I don't want anti-aliasing, I want pixelated. I'm making a low resolution image, so anti-aliasing is just going to blur it all out. I like it much better without anti-aliasing. This setup function creates a canvas that won't have anti-aliased shapes. To set that up, we start with pixel density 1, no smooth, before we create our canvas. Then we create our canvas, which is 192 by 108, 1/10 of full HD, and using WebGL. Then we set the style of that canvas to be displayed at 960 by 540, nice and big so we can see the pixels, with pixelated rendering. If we don't set the pixel density, on a high DPI display we'll actually get twice the resolution that we ask for. If we don't call no smooth, we'll get anti-aliased edges. And even if we do use no smooth, if we're not using WebGL, we'll get anti-aliasing anyway. Let's get rid of this ellipse and put in some code to draw a document. I'm going to translate to where I want the document to be first. 10 over, 10 down, and then call a function which I'll make in a second. We'll define the function here, and that draws our rectangle. I actually want that rectangle to be centered on the position that we've translated to. So let's do a rect mode center. I could pass in a position that I want this to be at, so it'll be X, Y, width, and height right here. But instead I'm translating to the position I want it to be at. That way I can also do things like rotate 45. I want that to be in degrees. Let's set the angle mode to degrees. Or scale. We have more flexibility if we set up the transformation matrix the way we want it and then just pass in the height and the width of the document to draw. Here I set the rect mode to center. Let's also make sure that the fill color is white. After we call draw document, the rect mode will be changed and the fill color will be changed. We can use push and pop so that changes we make to P5 settings like rect mode and fill will be contained within this function and won't spill out to future drawing. Then let's draw another document that's bigger. Alright, now I want to put some text on here, so I'm going to create a function that draws text. It'll just be black lines running down the page. Again, I'm going to start with push and pop, so that anything I change in draw text won't spill out into future drawing. And I'm going to translate to width times -0.5, height times -0.5. That way when I start drawing my text, I'm going to start in the corner where I want. And then we're just going to create a loop that loops us going down the page. There are our lines. This text should probably have some margin around it, so let's actually start 3 down and go to height -3. And we're going to go from 3 over to width -3. So we see we have the same size margin on all these documents. And let's try rotating one of these just to see what it looks like. Let's also add in a little bit of randomness to the line lengths. So we're going to subtract somewhere between 0 pixels and half the width from each line. That looks good for some rough text on the paper. Next, we need to figure out where we want to put the documents on our canvas. Let's start by just putting a bunch of documents randomly all over the scene. These are a little small. This doesn't quite look right. The text is bleeding through from one document to another. We're going to have to disable depth testing to fix it. In 2D mode, you don't have to do this because P5 will overdraw every time you draw a new shape. But in 3D mode, you have to disable depth testing so that it doesn't matter if something is in front or behind, it will always cover it up. Let's add a drop shadow to these pages to help visually separate them. Just randomly positioning these documents isn't really giving me the look I want. I want something that more evenly covers the whole surface but still looks messy. Let's try laying these out in a grid. Let's add a little randomness in. And let's put in a little bit of a random rotation. Let's make it a little more dense. That looks pretty good. Rather than draw the faces directly onto the canvas, we're going to draw them into an off-screen P5 graphics context and then copy that onto the canvas. This will let us crop our drawing to a little rectangle to represent the photograph. To set that up, we're going to need to declare a variable for our graphics context. Create the graphics context we need. It's going to be 16 pixels by 20 pixels. Set it up the way we want it with pixel density 1 and no smooth. And we want to disable depth testing on this, just like we did for the main canvas. We also want to disable bilinear filtering, so when we draw from this image onto our canvas, P5 won't try to anti-alias it. Alright, let's start drawing. This is our draw document function, and here's where we draw the text. Let's make it a random choice if we draw the text at all. Instead of blank pages, let's draw a face. I've got the beginnings of the draw face function right here. There's two important parts here. First, we draw the face into the P5 graphics, and then we copy that onto the main canvas. Let's try a random color for the background. Now let's add an ellipse. Let's randomize the fill color a little. Let's add in a shirt. And some eyes. Sometimes it looks like we don't have a face or a shirt, and that's just because we've chosen the same random color. Let's offset our background color a little so they'll never be perfect matches. Let's make the face a little bit taller, and let's add some hair. Need to move the hair behind the head, lower it a little, make it a little bigger. Let's lower it a little more, make it a little smaller. And let's make some of them bald. Right now they're all perfectly centered, which looks like mugshots. Let's offset them a little bit so it'll feel a little more candid. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. That's it for this video, and we just covered the basics of the conspiracy board. Look at the source code to see how I added the strings, some more details to the faces, the sticky notes, and the highlights in the document. Thanks for watching.